Welcome to Political Trade Secrets, an inside look at campaigns and politics, where we pull back the curtain, look under the hood, and investigate all aspects of politics and how elections are won. Now, here's your host, Dustin Olson.
And welcome to Political Trade Secrets. Welcome to this amazing Monday. We're going to have a great week this week of amazing political trade secrets. Just so you know, coming up this week, we're going to be talking about the census and redistricting, and I'm looking forward to that with a couple of our friends who are experts on the topic. And today, though, specifically, we're going to be talking about opportunity, how to create luck on the campaign trail. We're going to be revealing the one big secret as to what actually has things happen that really will move you forward. So please do listen to this episode and employ this in your campaign. And it's not going to be too surprising, but there's going to be some advice we're going to add to it. But wherever you are joining us from across the internet as we speak, thank you for joining us. We're on 12 different platforms. Maybe you're on Twitch, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, you're on Facebook. Who knows where you're at, but you can join the conversation really simply by posting a comment or question wherever you are at. Already see a couple of good mornings coming in. Thank you very much for the comments and questions. But wherever you are, you can post a comment or question. Through the magic of the internet, it starts to flow back here and it gets to me and Sean. And speaking of Sean, I want you to know that he really is excited about this topic as well. So give a warm applause for the Buckeyes best, the High Priest of Ohio, America's sweetheart, Sean Bartley. Sean, how you doing today?
Doing well. Good morning to you. Good morning to everyone out there. Looking forward to the conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how to create opportunity on the campaign trail, how to bring luck about. And it is a really simple, really mindset shift that you can have to make that happen for yourself and your campaign. And I'm looking forward to it. So wherever you are, if you'd like to join the conversation, please do post a comment or question, and we will bring you into the conversation. On that, if you would like to be a part of our community, we really do love all the people who've joined us in the last week. We've had so many people go to politicaltradesecrets.com and sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider to get exclusive stuff. We sent our weekly insider email over the weekend, and people have given us good feedback on that. We focused on some of our, what I would say, all the different numbers. We have the 5 forces of visual persuasion, the 7 secrets to a super stump speech, all of those, the different number shows that we did on stuff. We also have the 10 secrets to a great direct mail campaign, so many different things like that. So please do go to Political Trade Secrets, sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider, and get that exclusive stuff. We really do appreciate everybody who's there. And additionally, we're going to talk about a few things today. And we, whenever we have an episode where we have some resources to provide you, we send those out after the show. And the way to do that and make sure that you get those is by texting me right now, 202-918-3345. You'll become a part of our texting community, and I will send out a text later in the day with those resources, maybe some of the articles, topics that we're talking about, you name it, we will bring into that. Sean, anything you'd like to add to all that?
Absolutely. Dustin, you're talking about a lot of numbers right now. I'd like to add another number to the equation if I could. The number 10. 10centtexting.com. It is your way to get connected with your voters, your constituents, right where they are. We mentioned there were elections over the weekend. We sent our email out over the weekend, but there were elections over the weekend in Texas, and we were proud to have some of the folks that 10 Cent Texting we're working with reach out to us and tell us that they won. Based in part with their work on getting their message out to voters that way. So they really appreciated that. So there are elections taking place tomorrow all over the country. I know here in Ohio, there we have an interesting voting way here. It's patchwork all over the place. So
Mm-hmm.
some may be voting, some may not be. But there are people voting tomorrow, and I know that they're employing 10-cent texting as one of their things as well. Image, GIF, short video, right there in the body of the text message, and it goes out to your target universe. Really, a great way to get connected with folks and to continue the conversation. Like, you can actually have a conversation by text. Think about how you have conversations with people right now. You have it by text.
Yep.
It's something you do. And so what a great opportunity to do that again. So
excellent. And we're going to be talking about conversations in this episode. That's a big part of what we are talking about today. And, 10centtexting.com, it really is great to watch all the campaigns that we've been involved in Texas and elsewhere use this technology to actually connect with people, not just, vomit all over people with their information, but to actually connect with people, to have interactions, to really to move the ball forward. When somebody actually responds to a text that you send out and you respond back quickly, you can actually have a real conversation with them. There's no way they're going to forget who you are in that moment. And by the way, when I say you, it's your campaign, or it's 10-cent texting on your behalf, having a conversation with people based on the frequently asked questions, or the talking points that you want them to be able to push what you are about. That is an important part of it. So we highly encourage people to use that. Go to 10centtexting.com. And Sean, I have a special mug today. So
yeah.
This is a Pusser's Rum mug. It is, I guarantee you, it only has coffee in it. There's no rum. But we went into Annapolis over the week. We had a friend in town. We like to show people around. But we went to Annapolis. It was a beautiful weekend here in the DC metro area and Maryland and Virginia. And we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Anybody who's ever been to Annapolis knows that it's a quaint and beautiful state capital. I'd actually say it's one of the best state capitals in the country as far as just being picturesque. It's not like, no offense to our friends in Topeka, but it's not like Topeka.
You mean there aren't great sites around Topeka that you can get from the capital, or
not really. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm from the flat part of Colorado, and you go west of Topeka and you get into some pretty areas out there on the grasslands, or the all the different farmland, or you go east and you get to Lawrence and you get to Kansas City, and there's a lot of interesting things there. But Topeka is kind of like the only place where nothing is interesting. No offense to Topeka. Yeah. We love Topeka. And the thing is, what they have in Topeka is they have great people. That's what they've got in Topeka. If it's not great visuals, it's great people. And that's what they've got. And it's a pretty capital. They have a nice capital there. But in Annapolis, it was a beautiful place, and a lot of history, and we enjoyed that. And we sat out on the water, and I made sure to get my Pusser's Rum mug so that I can enjoy that as well. But anything interesting in your life? I imagine you probably have been paying attention to the draft over the last few days.
So the NFL draft, that was interesting. That started Thursday. I know we talked about it a little bit. Most of the reviews for the teams is that they mostly had good drafts. I'm a Bengals fan, for those that know, so I was pretty happy with how they tackled the draft, pun intended. And then, but we also had our Kentucky Derby party this weekend. As people might know, I'm a officer in our local Elks Lodge, so we had a fun time with that. And I'm drinking out of my McKinsey mug, so you might see she's drinking out of a mug with my face on it.
Oh, that's perfect. It's like in infinity, just keeps going. Every mug has another picture of somebody's face on it.
Another layer. It'll be pictures on top of pictures. So, and Mackenzie's aunt was one of the organizers of the Kentucky Derby party at the lodge. So we got all dressed up in our Derby duds.
So did you have a great Derby hat?
I did not have a great Derby hat. I did the blazer and the shirt with shorts.
Yes.
As custom in for the Derby in Louisville. So did that, but was not able to cap it off. Also, pun intended. But
Yes.
we
Well, there you go. Lots of puns indeed.
I
Well, on
know.
on the Derby, I cracked open a bottle of Ale 81 for anybody from Kentucky. They know what that is. And shout out to my friend Fielding Rogers, who that's his company, his family's background. And I know at the Kentucky Derby they like to mix Ale 81, which is a ginger ale, with Maker's Mark, and they even do like Maker's Mark Ale 81 shaved ice or something like that. It's like
Really?
a thing that they do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Anyway, but Ale 81 is a great ginger ale, regional ginger ale, which I've started seeing across the country. They've expanded their operations. So if you're in a Cracker Barrel or something like that, you'll probably see it, and highly recommend you get it because it is a little bit stronger, but it's also got caffeine in it, like unlike a lot of ginger ales. So highly recommend that. And Fielding is a great person as well, and his family. But anyway, those are some of the things going on in the world with us.
Yeah.
And the thing that we want to talk about today is we really would like to kind of pull back the curtain on what it is that creates opportunity on your campaign. How can you actually have more luck without having to be lucky? How
Yeah.
can you be out there every day doing the thing that's going to actually make it that you're going to have more opportunity in the world? And this is something that I think is applicable to campaigns, and we have to remind ourselves this for the business world and everywhere else. But if you really want to have opportunity in life, this is actually, I would say, a truism across the spectrum. And what would you like to say to set up the conversation?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you set it up well. I think so. The question is, and the question people are asking out there is, what is opportunity, or how do we define opportunity? And so,
Mhm.
Dustin, what would you tell our audience?
Yeah, so there's some things you don't have control over. Like you can't force something to happen, but you can be around for it to show up. So what we're talking about is we're creating an environment, we're creating a situation where opportunity can show up, where you're more likely to have opportunity, where you're more likely to have luck. In this case, I don't really think luck is really a thing. I think it's really opportunity is there, and when you're fine tuned to be looking for it, that's the first thing is that you have a filter that's attuned to opportunity. You're looking for it. Honestly, having a more positive mindset versus having a negative mindset is going to make a difference in this. There's a lot of people, they think the sky is always falling, and when they have an opportunity right in front of them, they don't see it. So that's the first thing is probably having having a mindset for opportunity. And when you're on a campaign, it's pretty easy to sometimes get into a negative spiral where you think everybody's coming after you and you don't see the opportunities even in a tough situation. So that's the first thing is I would say is the mindset.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that is something, and it's something we see a lot that that you don't necessarily have a mindset for opportunity.
Hmm.
And there are some great examples out there of people who are just looking for opportunity. Like him or not, Warren Buffett is looking for opportunity.
Yep.
He, and he sees it. And, right now he's seeing opportunity in electing crazy liberal folks as DAs. But
That's George Soros, I would say.
yeah,
Is Warren Buffett involved in that too?
I think so. But maybe I am confusing the two. But
Yeah.
he
Well,
also,
that's a problem if you're confusing Warren Buffett with George Soros.
yeah,
That's not good for Warren Buffett.
no,
But yes, it's definitely Warren Buffett has been playing footsie with the left for a while, and it's at some point that's not going to be something that's going to be great. But he's a perfect example of somebody, and actually Charlie Munger, who he's worked with for years, is a big proponent of mental models, what we would call strategic distinctions. What any kind of mental filter is what I would also call it, and mindset. That's part of it. So Charlie Munger is a big fan of that because it's a way to interchange the tools of your mindset to look at things a little bit differently. I'm going to pull up a comment that we have here. So I think Alex is getting to what is actually going to be a bit of how you actually make this happen. So you're starting to create your filter. So she says, fellow candidates, this is going to be an awesome episode. It reminds me of how important making these fundraising calls and get out the vote phone banking calls are to the success of our campaigns. So that starts to get into it. Is on the reality of this is whether it's on the phone making fundraising calls, or it's talking to voters over the phone, or talking to them at the door, or it's talking to leaders in the community, it's all a function of conversation. So your opportunity ultimately, and this is the big takeaway from all of this, is that your opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity. And I want to just kind of unpack that. That's a very specific statement, is the amount of opportunity you have, so, or the luck, or whatever you want to call it, is going to be a function. It may not be directly, absolutely, if you do X amount of calls, you're going to have X amount of opportunity. But the more conversations you have for opportunity, the more opportunities are going to just show up in your life, in money coming in the door, votes coming your way, great news articles for you, whatever it is. You're going to have more opportunities on your campaign. You're going to have more luck on the campaign trail if you're having more conversations for opportunity. So that's the first thing. It's the big takeaway. And so what does that look like? Well, what Alex mentions there's two different things there: fundraising calls and phone banking calls. Are two ways that you can have it. Now, not all the conversations for opportunity are going to be just the candidate. It's going to be everybody on the campaign trail.
That's right.
But the number one place is fundraising calls. What would you like to add to that?
Yeah, well, I think I want to get into the idea of not all conversations are created equal here.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're really talking about is conversations you have for opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and really get into that as an idea. Because that's where the magic happens. So we've seen people have a lot of conversations, but what's missing is this idea of opportunity being there.
Mm-hmm.
So they have conversations because you got to have conversations, and so they get that, and they might even be like, they might even start by saying, I hate having these conversations. Well, that doesn't really inspire the person on the other end of the phone to say, man, this is going to be a great conversation. I just can't wait.
I'm going to put that up there so people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity. And that is that last part, as Sean just highlighted, is the conversations you have for opportunity. And so what does that look like in the actual conversation? So it might be a fundraising call. It might be maybe a one-on-one meeting with someone you're recruiting to be on your finance committee. Maybe it's talking to someone who maybe they can help with fundraising, but they're really a kind of a integral part of the community. They're a mover and shaker. Maybe their political clout and their ability to help you raise money is going to be important. You're sitting down with them. Or maybe it's a big, powerful political leader that their support is going to be great to opening doors. So any of these, the fact is, just having the conversations with these people, that's the first part.
Yep.
The more conversations you're having with people like this. So the first thing is, who are the people you're talking to? You're talking to people who are connected. You're talking to people who care about the community. You're talking to people who are focused on the community and focused on making things happen. So these are the kind of people that you're reaching out to. There are also people that they might be only loosely connected to you. So when we're talking about who, we're talking about people, you come up with a list of all the people who are in your network. That's the first thing we always tell people when they're thinking about running for office. We suggest starting with a list of 600 names of people who are in your network. They might be, the reason 600 names is important is because you're going to get past the people who are really close to you really quickly. And the truth is, the people who are really close to you, and this is how networks work, the people who are really close to you have the same network as you do. So let's say you're in a small group, men's or women's Bible study at your church, and you see them every week. These folks generally are going to be spending a lot of time with the same people. Maybe your families get together for holidays or whatever. There's going to be a lot of the same people. So you're going to want to move beyond just that network, because everybody in that men's group or that women's group is going to be people who all know each other.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to put them all down on the list, but then you want to ask them about the people in their network. Maybe one of them's a member of Rotary and you're not really active in Rotary. So that person's now a node to a whole new network. And so you want to talk to a lot of those people in the network and say, Joe or Mary said I should call you. So these are the kind of people that you're going to be talking to for opportunity. They're going to be people who are loosely connected to you, and you're just going to move out in concentric circles. So that's the who. That's who you're talking to. So it's not just anybody you're talking to. So if you're talking to your friend who's in every same organization as you all have the same network.
Yeah, and so I think that's really great. And this is really the first This is really the first function of looking for opportunity. Mm-hmm. So another way is, all of my friends, we're all friends together. We all know the same people. We can't possibly know other people. So you don't even ask, like, okay, who else do you know that would be interested in this? So the first thing is just seeing that there's an opportunity there. Because somebody is going to belong to an organization you don't belong to. Yeah. Maybe you're in the Lions Club, they're in Rotary, or whatever. Okay, great. Well, then they can focus on that. So whatever it is, so be looking for that. Maybe you go to church together, they live in a different part of town or the next city over or whatever it is. Okay, well then that opens up a whole new thing for you. So be looking for that, and just some people like to do it like, maybe there's opportunity everywhere. So just be, I'm on the lookout for opportunity, whatever it is, and just like, okay, where is opportunity here? And seeing that. But I do think, yes, these are going to be people that are connected, that are going to be focused on the community or focused on whatever it is, maybe the issue that you care deeply about. Mm-hmm. That's why this isn't necessarily about, we're talking about this in running for office, but it could be any number of things.
Yeah,
that where it can make a difference. And by the way, people think about this differently. When they put out hey, we need help. Somebody was in a car accident or something else, right? You start. When you're expanding that, you start thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, there are a lot more people that can help. Well, it's kind of looking for that everywhere.
Yeah.
People want to be helpful.
Yeah, people want to be helpful. And this goes to the idea that we talk about a lot, that we talked about this in our episode that's been really popular, which I'm really grateful for. We did messaging and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We did that like a month ago. You can find that at politicaltradesecrets.com. And I highly recommend that people go check that out at politicaltradesecrets.com and go ahead and sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider when you're there. But you can go check that out. You have the first, second, third, fourth levels of people's needs, from basic needs of food and shelter to having connection and community. And ultimately what we get into there is we get to the higher level of purpose. That's really the last level. And that is what you're offering in the campaign, is you're offering someone the ability to be a part of something bigger than any one person. And that's an innate need that people have. And so these conversations, if you're looking at this as you're out there to get opportunity from people, you're looking to get something from them for you personally, that's not going to really work. But if you're looking at it as an opportunity to expand your vision, which is going to be important to have the actual vision, we're going to talk about this in a second, about what constitutes a conversation for opportunity, is that you are having a conversation around vision and whatnot. We'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, you are providing something to these people. Like, you're looking at it as, who are people that I can help do whatever it is that they're out to do in the world. And that's partly going to be who you want to talk to. If someone is the head of some association that's focused on economic development, well, then you can be a part of helping them bring about economic development. And that's something you can provide for them. So, and they have a whole network of people who are going to be interested in that. Then you get to tap into that. So that's going to be part of the filter, as well as how you're looking at that. We have a comment here that, if you do not have a positive mindset, it'll be really difficult to enroll someone in the possibility of your campaign. You will be stuck. Conversations should be inspiring. That's excellent. We're going to get into that in just a second. But the first thing I'd like to let people know is that if you like the conversation, you love the conversation, go ahead and do that on whatever platform you're on. Like it, love it, wow it, whatever it is. There you go. That's the love. You got to do that one. And you just do that right down there below. And that's really helpful. Additionally, you can also join ShareForce. So join ShareForce, make a difference, reignite American patriotism, and that is as simple as you can go to politicaltradesecrets.com and sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider. And additionally, all you have to do is right down there, there's a thing you can retweet if you're on Twitter. You can hit share if you are on Facebook. If you're on Twitch or anywhere else, you can share it. You can tweet. You can text it out to people. We highly recommend that you do that because we're ultimately here to inspire and empower people who are out to make a difference for their community and for their state and for our country in order to reignite American patriotism. And who knows, by sharing this program today, who you might inspire to step up, to speak up, to show up and unleash their political power so that they can make the difference. And that's really what you might do today. We have had this experience in the last 6 months or so where the big tech companies sometimes don't allow us to be out there. I don't know why. Everything we've said has been very positive and empowering. And anyway, they don't necessarily want us to do that for our conservative audience, it seems. So you sharing it is the same as having these conversations for opportunity. It's putting something out there that has people see something a little bit differently, that maybe they have a new action that they can take. And that goes into what we're about to talk about, which is what is a conversation for opportunity. And that can be fundraising. It can be talking to voters. It can be talking to the press, reaching out to the audience, which is the readers or the viewers. And what is a conversation for opportunity? You can do that simply by sharing this. This program is going to start a conversation. It's going to give a new idea to people. So the first thing is, I would say, when you have a conversation with somebody for opportunity, that it has a certain aspect to it. The comment we just had alluded to it, that there's a positive mindset, okay, that it's inspiring. That's perfect. So that you are enrolling somebody. I like that word as well, because you're enrolling somebody. You're sharing an idea. You're sharing a possibility that either touches, moves, or inspires somebody, that has them see things a little bit different. Maybe they have a paradigm shift from that conversation. They see something totally differently, that they now are empowered to take an action that could actually make a difference on something that matters to them. So, Sean, what would you say? What does a conversation for opportunity look like to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really around this idea of enrollment,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the presence in which a phenomenon includes being moved, touched, and inspired. So, as the comment mentioned, being inspired can be an element to it, but it really, when this enrollment's present, there's a sense of being up to something, and that's something you talked about earlier, which was this idea of be a part of something bigger than yourself. This idea of really getting in the top of Maslow's hierarchy, like that, is that it's there, and it's the presence of aliveness and alacrity, inspiration, and affinity for life and for others. And so you can see that, and just think about you when you've had these conversations like that. Like, yeah,
They're alive, like there's actually something living there. And that's what inspiration is. The old definition is to breathe life into something. That's what to inspire something is, to breathe life into it. And a conversation that's alive, that you're breathing life into, other people are going to get something from that. And that's what a conversation for opportunity is going to have. What else?
Yeah, well, I would say that that there is a sense of vision in the presence of that inspiration we were just talking about. And, the presence of a real possibility, like there is a vision for being alive for yourself and or others. It's like an awakening.
Yeah.
Think about John Wesley and the Great Awakening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he's on horseback across, riding across in these revivals, and there was an awakening, an aliveness in all these places, and so that really came out of having enrollment and being a part of something bigger than themselves. Of course, that was with Christianity and the idea the idea of being saved and whatnot there. So,
I love that you brought up John Wesley, because one of the things that in what he did is he shared a message, he shared a possibility of what was possible for people's lives. So that was a big part of it. And one of the things that he also did, you talked about being on the horse, like he rode his horses to death. I think I don't know how many horses he went through, but he was all over the country, going from place to place, and he would meet not just with one person, but he would meet with groups of people. He would inspire groups of people. So some of these conversations will be with one person. Sometimes they'll be with a group of people. It might be in a stump speech. It might be in the newspaper. It might be doing a stand-up interview to the local news affiliate. It might be talking on the radio, and it might be what most likely is going to be lots of fundraising calls or fundraising events. But what he did is he would go and he'd talk to a lot of these smaller groups, and he would raise up leadership. He would empower people to take up the mantle after he left. He would leave them being a part of something bigger than any one person. That's part of what he did. He brought them into a movement, and then he went to the next conversation, next conversation, next conversation. He talked to people constantly. He was constantly out there going. Now, we don't have to ride a horse to the next town to do this.
That's right.
We can just get on the phone and we can start talking to people who are influential people, they're connected people, and we can start sharing our vision with them, sharing what we see as possible with them. And in that, part of what this conversation for opportunity is you can actually present what the likely future would be if nothing's done. If you weren't elected, if no one took on the issues, took on the vision that you are taking on, what is likely to happen? You can present that really quickly to them, with that this is the likelihood of how things are going to go if we don't step up, or by supporting this campaign, by donating to this campaign, by volunteering for this campaign, by just publicly stating you're supporting this campaign. This is what's possible, is this vision that we might be able to do X, Y, or Z. And when you really get that you're actually inspiring, you're bringing life into the conversation, is when that person starts adding to it.
Absolutely. And I think you're starting to get into a little of the where this happens.
Yeah.
You've got this vision, and it's why, look, the vision is what you're sharing with people, and it's enrolling. It's got people interested. Okay, so like where do you share this? You mentioned one of them. We talked about it with the with John Wesley and others. It could be in speeches. It could be in these that is where the term barnstorming first arose. It's this idea of going across. Well, so now, but I know plenty of people think, oh, well, that's, maybe that's the thing that they'd actually look forward to in campaigns. Like let's just get a bunch of speeches on the calendar. Well, so speeches are great because it's an opportunity to get connected with more than one or two people at a time.
Mm-hmm.
There are some drawbacks. One is that sometimes it's the same people who show up to all of these things. So you've spoken to one event, you've spoken to them all.
And that's partly why we talked about who. If you're talking to people who are already there, they have the same network, they have the same, you're not expanding the opportunity. Right. You're not putting yourself out there to be kind of a lightning rod for opportunity.
And then another pitfall in speeches or in these speaking to a crowd is that if you are speaking to them and not getting connected with them, then it's really all for naught. Like
Yeah.
you've just thrown something out there where it's really got to be something where you are getting this. It's not a surprise who I'm going to bring up here. I don't think, Dustin, who can give a speech and get connected with the crowd, and
I
that
have
is
no idea who you're gonna mention.
Donald J. Trump,
That's right.
who, would give a speech. And by the way, he'd float ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they really were incubators of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
These speeches and these rallies, and sometimes he'd present something and people kind of go, and he'd even say, "Okay, that was a loser. We're moving on to the next thing." He'd even just acknowledge, like, "Yep, that one wasn't it. Let's move on." But then it's also how you get that. Not a surprise, but America had no stomach for kneeling
Yeah.
before for the national anthem. They're like, you know what? Wait a minute. That's what I fought for. It's what, it's the least that these millionaires can do is stand for the national anthem or stay in the locker room. I don't want to see it.
Yeah, that's perfect. There's a feedback. We've talked about feedback loops, but there's this feedback. There's this connection. There is the sense of the other party being heard, and I'm really glad that you started with the where on speeches, because part of the what is when you're having this conversation with somebody, that there's a sense of empowering people to act on what fulfills them, to be a part of that mission, that thing that's greater than any one person. And it's something that you're presenting that's consistent with who they are and what really matters to them. So you have to listen for that. And here's the thing, is that every single time you have these conversations for opportunity, with whether it's the fundraising calls or it's in the speech or whatever it is, you're having this feedback mechanism. You're watching for whether people's eyes light up and they start to add to it. And that's something you mentioned that Donald Trump really did, is that he really gave people a sense of buy-in, that they were actually adding to the story, that they were actually giving to it. And here's the thing, is that the conversations for opportunity is that whatever your purpose is, whatever your vision is, and you have to be clear about that. That's before any of this conversation. I recommend people go back to our Inside the Vision conversation episode with Alex, who is a prospective candidate, and it was an excellent conversation. But you first have to get a sense for what that vision is. But in these conversations for opportunity, you're going to have this experience of the vision expanding and growing, and them adding to it and saying, well, have you thought about this? Or, I really like what you're saying. Have you ever thought about how it applied to tax policy or something else? And then you're going to also we talked about this with Jay Townsend on Friday. We talked about having real stories connected to what it is you're out to do. You're going to start collecting those stories as you're talking to people, because they have real life experiences. And then if you're able to take their stories and bring it onto the campaign trail, then it even expands even more and more. And you have this sense of, it's not just you and your experience, but it's the experience of a greater public who are living out whatever your vision is, and they're dealing with whatever it is that you're trying to, the wrong you're trying to right, or whatever it is. You're adding their stories. I talked to a small business owner who's dealing with X, and he's really concerned about getting his daughter through college, and because of this policy, whatever it is. And then you've added to your vision even more. So there's the sense of everybody starting to add to it. And that's what happens in the conversation for opportunity. And things just start to pop up. And things start to happen, and you have the sense of almost being lucky that things start to happen, and you're attuned to watching for where you can have things add to your vision, have it be alive, and have it actually start to come into reality.
Absolutely. And so I think that is a great thing to really point out here. And we're talking about some of the other places where these conversations take place. I want to hit on a few that some candidates think, this is where I need to be, where in reality, it's probably where your volunteers need to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or, whoever you've hired to do that. And so I want to talk about voter phone calls. And this is a way for like to encourage people, to inspire people to vote for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have candidates who get on the phones and call folks, and it really depends on the size and the scope of the race and whatever else. We actually talked about this in canvassing with Jay Townsend on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you're in a district where it's 1,000 people, well, or 1,000 voters, going out and knocking on the doors, and you could hit everybody's door 2 or 3 times, in
Mm-hmm.
addition to everything else, the fundraising calls and everything else you need to do.
And if you use technology, you could actually make sure you call everybody who you can't get at the door.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so that's where you being the person to do that, the candidate to do that, makes sense. But if you're running for Congress or, even in most places, the state Senate, in some of your bigger counties, you are not going to be able to cover enough ground to knock on doors or call everybody even once, let alone actually have the conversation. So getting to their doorstep is one thing, and that's great. But it's really the conversation. We didn't say that you attempted the conversation. Mm-hmm. That's not what creates opportunity. It's actually the conversation for opportunity that creates opportunity.
Yeah. So, so many campaigns would prefer the lit drop than actually knock on someone's door and try to have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And lit dropping has been shown in the book Get Out the Vote by Dave Gerber and Alan Green. I think I got both names right. They have actually studied this, and lit drops have a barely detectable difference in Get Out the Vote or in changing people's minds, whereas actually knocking on people's doors, having a conversation with people, a conversation for opportunity, as we are presenting it here, it can really make a difference. And it really can make a difference. And if you're in a large enough district, which is most districts, you as the candidate won't be able to do all of that.
That's exactly right. And so, hey, you're listening to us. You're thinking about running for the state legislature. You're thinking about running maybe for county commissioner, and almost every county I can think of, Dustin. You're either not going to be able to get to the doors because they're too far apart, and it doesn't make sense from a numbers perspective, thinking about that, or you just have too many and you're not going to be able to get to it that way. That is where you either empower your volunteers and you have a system set up for that, or you go to the professionals. Look, Grassfire, canvassing, petitioning, live calling, they really put your best foot forward for you and your campaign on the doorstep, in front of the grocery store, or over the phone. So it's www.grassfire.us. Great way to reach out to them. Schedule your complimentary consultation. And because these are very impactful ways to communicate with people, you just want to make sure you're having it on a big enough scale that it's moving numbers, that it's making a difference. And that it's not like, oh, yeah, this is something that somebody said we should do, and so we're going to go out and do it. And then maybe we've knocked on 1,000 doors by the time this is all done in a district of 50,000 people. Well, in reality, you've talked to maybe 250 people, 500 people.
Which can be helpful as far as almost having a focus group in a way of people giving you their input. If you're actually asking conversations, you're actually having conversations for opportunity, you're actually getting people's feedback, which is one of the reasons I'd recommend Grassfire. Is they take the conversation to the next level. They insist on making sure that you put your best foot forward. These folks are going to be probably the only person that the voter ever meets that represents the future U.S. Senator, the future governor, the future state representative. This is the person who's going to be your representative. This is the person who they're going to have a sense for. This represents who's in office, as opposed to somebody who is, brought off the street and doing a low-wage job, and they may not be completely professional. That is a pretty common thing for most of the marketplace out there. So this is really important that people want to do it in a big enough way. When we talk about strategies, or we talk about specific tactics that undergird your strategy, one of the questions we ask is, can we do it big enough? Or how can we do it in a big enough way that it actually puts points on the board? And that's something you need to ask when you're doing your canvassing. And when you're doing your live calling, that how can we have our volunteers do it in a large enough way that it makes a difference? How can we do it with a paid effort that does it in a large enough way that makes a difference? And can the candidate do it in a large enough way that makes a difference? Now, on this, I also would recommend, even if you're in a congressional district and the candidate's not going to be able to go to every single door, I do recommend doing some door-to-door with the candidate, especially earlier in the campaign, and in particular having throughout the campaign the candidate make using some technology that allows the candidate to make calls quickly, calling voters throughout the district and having conversations with them, because that's going to have you be able to have these conversations for opportunity and really to hone your message, hone your story, hone your vision, have these conversations with people to see what matters. Maybe you're going to collect additional stories from them as to what matters to them, and you can bring that into your stump speech. I was talking to a voter in such and such town, and what she was telling me was XYZ, and that helps tell the story, because your vision is meeting people where they live and what matters to them. And that's the only other thing I'd say. If you can work into the schedule, you don't want to do it at the expense of fundraising calls and other things, but this is a way to have the candidate be grounded and be able to practice delivering their message and sharing their vision with people, talking about issues that matter to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is spot on about what can happen, and there are some other reasons to do for the candidate to be doing those things, but just be clear about what the objectives are when you're doing it, so that you get what it is that you're trying to achieve. So I think that's important. We mentioned another way, and I talked about it at the beginning of the episode, which is texting. So you can actually set up your peer-to-peer texting, as it's called in campaigns, to actually be able to do responses back and engage people. Again, this is another area where almost always I would suggest it not be the candidate in this instance, because you are crafting one message, based on the vision, whatever it is you're trying to convey to the voter, and have that engaged quickly and be able, on a scale big enough that it makes a difference. And that's where, we talked about 10-cent texting earlier. It comes in. They can do that. It is one of the ways that you can actually do this in a way that has enough reach, and also gets out quickly enough that you can actually get in real time what the general responses were from people, and then so you get the specific responses from individuals, but then you can also get in aggregate what happened. And we were talking about, I got some feedback on campaigns this weekend. They had open rates in the mid 90s.
That's amazing.
95% of people opening. So, people who are actually engaged in sending several messages, which we would advise that's the way to actually do it. You can actually get rid of the numbers that are either, been disconnected or for whatever reason, and do some of those things. And then you can be to this place where people are actually, and you can actually see, and if you're listening to the voters that reply back to you, you can actually get I want to hear more about this topic, or engage in some of that. And if you've done polling and some other things, really engage in that, and it causes higher open rates.
Yeah. And it's as simple as asking a question. I'd recommend having at the end of your text message, the actual text, I'd keep it as short as possible. You have 320 characters, but I would suggest having it as tight as possible and ending it with a question. And you can even use your GIF or your picture or your video to ask the question as well. I'd recommend that as well. Sometimes it could be as simple as a 2-color GIF that has a colored background with white lettering, just asking a question, a GIF that has 2 slides, and it has your name and logo, and then it has the question you're asking people. That is simple as that. You will get a lot of responses, and 10-cent texting can send you the download of all those. Or if you want to, you can actually get set up with the back end and be able to communicate back and forth with them, or you can have 10-cent texting do that for you. Either way, if you jump onto those responses quickly, even if it's a slightly negative response, you can usually flip people back to you
Yep.
because you're having a real conversation with people. It's the most surprising thing I've seen in the last couple of years. I would not have expected texting to be the way to have real conversations with people, but yet it's the proof is there in the open rates and in the interactions, and being able to have people donate is one way you can see this.
Yep.
We had to get out the vote text back in the fall, and by responding to people and having conversations for opportunity, that campaign raised $20,000 extra just off of get out the vote text, which then allowed them to do more texting. That's amazing. But that is the idea of being out there ready to engage and have a conversation with people for opportunity. You can do it over texting. What else? We've talked about speeches. We've talked about texting. We've talked about canvassing. We've talked a little bit about voter phone calls. If you would like to add a little bit of that, and then we're going to focus a little bit more on fundraising calls.
Yeah, absolutely. All I was going to say is, look, on the voter phone calls, it is another way where it's either you as a candidate or your volunteers or paid professionals, like we talked about with Grassfire, can really make the difference for you. But you got to just really be looking at this for scale and opportunity. So they have an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And one of the ways is to go vote. And if you framed it that way, it's like, okay, I actually want to go vote, not this is some obligation I happen to have on some Tuesday sometime in the future. It is something that I want to go do, and I'm going to figure out, and you've given them all the ways to do it, and you've given them really a roadmap to take action. And so that's what you've done in those.
And to do that, this is going to require, and I recommend this for campaign managers and for the general consultant, is a lot of times campaigns and the higher ups in the campaign don't care about what the script is, what the guidance is for the volunteers calling voters. They just treat it like, oh, that's the thing we have to check the box. And even if it's trash that they're putting out there, person to person conversations, they don't care. That's a huge mistake. I think everyone should be interested in what it is that your campaign's presenting with human to human conversations. This is volunteers who are passionate about your campaign talking to voters who clearly care about their family and community at least, even if they're not that engaged in the election, they care about their family and community. So actually formulating your script, and don't make it too long, but really having it about being conversations for opportunity, and getting that, this idea of opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity. Have your volunteer calls to voters be based off of that. So your conversations with people, you should present an idea, present a vision, present something that people can be a part of, something that's bigger than any one person, and that's going to be part of your message. It's going to present a choice for them that, and then by voting, they can be a part of that. And you want to get their actual, get them to state whether they'll be a part of that. But you don't want to stop there, because who knows how much opportunity could be in this one conversation. It's possible they could want to have your sign in their yard. Maybe it's possible that they want to have, they want to volunteer for you. So these questions should be asked to every single person. Additionally, ask them what actually matters to them. And I would actually, if I were for our campaigns, I always want to know what the responses are to our volunteer calls to voters. What are voters telling us back? And I'd like to actually find out and actually get a report from people as to what the voters are telling our volunteers on the phone. So having a question in there to actually get what matters to the voters, and having that inform the candidate and inform the campaign manager and inform the political director, inform the fundraising team as to what people are saying they care about. That's important to have as part of that. And with the new technologies these days, we had Drew Ryan on in the fall talking about Campaign Sidekick. There's so many ways to be able to capture that information. Either it's multiple choice, or you just have them write in notes. If there's somebody who's really powerful, and it might even be that the candidate should call this person back, you are actually having a real feedback loop between your volunteer calls to voters and having that inform your campaign and making it stronger. So you're always on the lookout for these opportunities.
Yep. And that is a great point. Is that people that these are functions that people say, oh, it's just something we've got to do, and when they're wasting an opportunity. So we talk about creating opportunities. There are plenty of wasted opportunities on campaigns. Sometimes it's not doing something, and sometimes it's doing something poorly, which is one of the things I think we've seen in canvassing, voter calls, texting in particular. But let's move into fundraising calls. If you've been a candidate so far and you've been listening to this, you thought maybe you were off the hook on this because we haven't talked about it too much. Well, we saved the best for last because this truly is where opportunities are created. And they're created for a number of reasons. One is it is generally a one-on-one proposition. And it's also where somebody is going to feel freer to actually be in the conversation and engaged in what is possible. And so, really think about this. Since the third grade, whenever you pose a question to a big enough group, how many people raise their hands? Generally, very few. So if you're going to get feedback by putting a question out there and trying to get responses back from a crowd, that's just not going to happen most of the time. And even when you get the response back, it's going to be, most of the time, it's going to be an answer that people think that you either want to hear or they think is the right answer.
Yeah.
Where if you are engaged in a one-on-one conversation, an enrollment conversation about what is possible, they're going to just say what's there, what they hear, and really get connected that way. And that's
be open. If you really connect with their humanity, they will be open and they will say the things that they wouldn't say if even one other pair of ears were there.
That's right. And so that is why fundraising calls are one of the many reasons why fundraising calls are important.
Yeah. So for myself, I consider fundraising calls to be where most of the campaign happens because, as I say here, opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity. You spend 80% of your time in fundraising conversations, and most of these are going to be over the phone. A lot of these are going to go back to, not a lot, but a certain portion are going to go to being one-on-one meetings with people who are influencers. And then there'll be some they're going to be talking to a group or association that have all similar interests. Maybe it's the gravel and asphalt people, or it's going to be the oil and gas people, or it's going to be the animal rights people, whatever it is. You're going to be talking to people of different backgrounds, but they have a common interest in those cases. But most of the time it's going to be calling people who are loosely connected to you. They're connected, 1 degree or 2 degrees from you, and they're going to be having their own networks, and you're going to be talking to them about your vision, and you're going to be sharing with them how they can be a part of it. And it's going to be this back and forth. And most of the way we've talked about this is the way I think about it. These are mostly where I experience the opportunities, the conversations for opportunity is in fundraising calls. And that's where you're going to get most of the stories that you're going to add to your vision. Those are going to be where you find most of the opportunities for your campaign. People will say, oh, I know somebody you should talk to, and they will tell you. So you're always going to be looking on the lookout for how this person can be a part of your vision, how they can be a part of making it a reality. You're looking for how you can empower them to be a part of this and how you can actually listen for what matters to them and give them ways to take action to fulfill on what matters to them. Because it's not just about your vision exclusively, it's about your vision plus what matters to them.
Yeah. Well, and it really goes back. We've talked about it a lot on this show, the Olson strategy sweet spot. It's your strengths, the opponent's weaknesses, and the voters' concerns. Well, in this conversation, it's really about what is possible, your vision, and instead of the voters' concerns, really the donors' concerns. Like, what is the donors concerned about? Look, if you haven't been in these conversations before, you think, oh, fundraising, it's just special interest giving money to get an outcome they want.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, the way it works in almost all cases, is that it is a conversation between shared interest. And it is like, no kidding, this is what's possible. And in these individual conversations, it's it could be what's possible around securing the border, or it could be what's possible around a better future for your kids and grandkids. Whatever it is, and whatever you've created, that is what that's what you're enrolling somebody else into.
Yeah. So there's a lot here. We've done a couple of episodes just on fundraising mindset. This is all informed in that. But this idea of opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity. It is not just for fundraising or for voter conversations or volunteer recruitment. That's another place that you're going to be speaking to this. And it's ultimately, this is an idea that is powerful for everything. I have to remind myself about this for business development. The number of conversations we have with others is going to increase the opportunities that we have to make a difference in the world. So this is something that's true for anybody. If you're a salesperson, this might be stated a little bit differently than what you are aware of. However, you get this. You get that the number of conversations you have, not just the number of people you reach out to, but the number of conversations you have is going to impact it. Now, on that, what do you actually have control over? You don't necessarily control whether or not someone will have a conversation with you. However, you have control over the number of times you reach out to people and you try to have a conversation with people. Now, you can do things to get better at that, to have more people respond, to have a conversation with you. But ultimately, you can increase the number of times. You can make sure you're out there trying to have conversations with people, reaching out to folks. You have that power. And as you get better at this, and oftentimes I find, even though you don't even have the conversation, just by reaching out, somebody's thinking of you, they're thinking about what you're about and how it relates to what's important to them, and they might actually take action around that anyway. So that's an amazing thing. When you leave a voicemail for somebody from a fundraising call, and then all of a sudden an online donation shows up, and you've not even had the conversation, that kind of stuff happens. That's what we're talking about. You're kind of creating luck. Of course, it's not luck. Yeah. We know that it's you're reaching out, you're trying to talk to people about what matters to them, and share with them your vision, and things start to happen, and you will have luck happen on the campaign trail.
And there is looking at the voicemail, getting the voicemail as an opportunity to get connected.
Mm-hmm.
So, you share, you got 30, 45 seconds to get them engaged. And then you can say, call me back or donate online or whatever it is. And
that's absolutely right, because that is actually you communicating to that specific person and delivering something of value to them. If you're doing it the right way, if you're doing it in a way that actually connects with somebody, you can do that.
And communication happens all the time. We can do a whole show on that. And it happens. And conversations are had even when you might not necessarily be having the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do a whole episode on that. We're not going to get into all that right now. But this is the opportunity you have. You can create opportunities. You get to create your own luck. And there are a lot of great ways to do that. So, and we want you to get out there, get engaged, and really take this for a spin.
Yeah. So we talked about who, what, when, where, why. So the when is always a now. So this is something that has to be consistent. You have to be doing it all the time. If you're out there having conversations for opportunity, you'll have more conversations for opportunity. If you do it every Monday as opposed to every day, then that's not going to work. The other thing, rule of thumb, I guess we'd call it, or a mindset, is that what you do daily gets done. And it's a powerful idea, but what you do daily gets done. Maybe it's every weekday, but whatever you do daily gets done.
Yeah.
And that's when you want to be doing this. Is you want to have fundraising calls daily. You want to be having the campaign doing volunteer calls daily. You want to have the campaign canvassing daily. What you do daily gets done. And why do you do this? Because this is how you actually win. Yeah. And that's why you want to do this. Is that this is really at the crux of it. This is what the whole campaign's about.
Well, and you pointed out to another thing that I just want to go back to earlier. talking about the also looking for opportunities when conversations can be had. So, look, if you're calling people Friday at 5 or 6 p.m. on their business line, odds are you're not going to have too many conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And the folks that are still there probably want to get the heck out of there.
Yep.
They don't want to be having a conversation. They might not be open for a conversation for opportunity. So you got to be thinking, okay, when is it that I could actually have a conversation? And if it's not a good time for someone, say, okay, I want to schedule a conversation with you. Just go ahead and let's be doing that. Because you're going to be making calls, and as you mentioned, hopefully daily on this. And maybe there's a set of friends that you know that the only time you can get a hold of them is on Saturday morning. Well, then it might not be the normal time you make fundraising calls, but it's the time you're going to be making calls to that group. Because you know that, or you're going to run into them somewhere. So you want to make sure that, hey, you're going to have the opportunity for this. So it's really just basically be opportunity seekers wherever. And that sometimes the actions you're going to take might not be lending themselves to having opportunity conversations. So be looking for where that might be missing.
And if people want to schedule a conversation, one way you can do that is contact us at Olson Strategies. You can email me, Dustin@olsonstrategies.com, or Sean, SEAN, @olsonstrategies.com. And we would love to help you with your campaign, with your issue campaign, with whatever you are doing to make a difference in your community. We really are here to empower political leaders across this country to make a difference for their community, for their state, and for our country. So if you want to take your political leadership to the next level, we really are the best political strategists, political consultants that you could work with. We both provide political strategy, political consulting, and we have a whole campaign tool set that you can use for your advertising needs, targeted advertising needs for your campaign. We have everything in our toolbox that you can use, and we can provide you a comprehensive campaign with that. Sean, what would you like people to know about that?
Yeah, look, you are going to need, each campaign is different. And so how you connect with voters is going to be different in each and every campaign. So the tactics are going to be different. So why not bring in strategists that are going to be looking at each campaign newly, as opposed to, oh, this is the way I've done things for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. Or I've never done this before. And, but, I think I've seen how campaigns run on TV. So I'm
all Robert Redford and the candidate.
Exactly. So bring in someone who has the expertise, but also realizes that you and your campaign are different, and that you deserve the setup of someone that each campaign is different, and they're not going to use the same tactics and the same message and the same vision. It's all going to be different. It's all going to be shaped around you and what the voters care about, and really the situation of the race.
Yeah. And the only thing that's similar is we use best practices from, hundreds of campaigns, but it's all tailored to your strengths, your opponent's unique weaknesses, and what the voters care about. That informs every single thing. Whether we're a consulting partner for you, or we are providing a service from our campaign toolbox, either way, we always employ that. We always want to make sure how we can present the strongest choice for you. And that's something we love to do. Absolutely love to do it. And we use these kinds of tools, as we've talked about today, these practices, for instance, of, opportunities, a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity, which is why we're so big on the various tools of Grassfire and 10-cent texting. So you can go to grassfire.us to schedule a complimentary consultation with Grassfire if you need canvassing or at the doorstep, or you need petitioning in front of the grocery store, or you need live calling right there on the phone with people. You have a great partner there. And then, of course, with 10centtexting.com for that one-on-one political campaign texting to be able to reach reach a large swath of the population. This isn't people who have already opted into your list. These are people who have not opted into your list, yet you still need their vote. And so you need a way to get them, and they can do that legally, quickly, and cheaply. And that's really important that you use them. One thing I like to remind people is that to be a part of our community, you can simply sign up to be a Political Trade Secrets Insider, get exclusive stuff. We send out our weekly insider email. We also send out specific emails on like topics like fundraising, like we talked about today. We will send out conversation or episodes specifically on grassroots, whatever it is. We have different things like that to empower you to really unleash your political power. And from today's conversation, we'll be sending out the recap from this the show notes from this episode. So you can text me directly at 202-918-3345. Again, 202-918-3345. And for everybody on the podcast, 202-918-3345. You'll get a text back with a link. Be sure to click that link and it'll have you opt in. Once you're opted in, you'll always be getting a text directly from me or from Sean, and you can reply back, and it's going to be direct communication with us. If you have any questions or comments for the show, we really do appreciate the feedback we get there, and we always send out the resources from the shows to that community after the program. So, Sean, what are your final thoughts? What do you want to leave people with from this conversation about creating opportunity, about opportunity being a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity?
Yeah, look, I want to leave folks with the idea that wherever you are, whatever you're out to do, that you can really have people be a part of something bigger than themselves, but it starts with you having the conversation with them. Mm-hmm. And without it, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really that simple. And so that's what's possible for you. And you can leave right now and go and do that. Like, say you're going to wrap up with us here in just a couple minutes. You can just jump on the phone and call someone and say, here's what I'm up to.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's you're thinking about running. Maybe it's you are running for something. Maybe you are someone who doesn't want to run for something, but would like to volunteer for someone. I was just thinking about, we've had volunteers in the past who said, I'm going to be the person in my precinct for this campaign. And we've seen them flip the precinct from the opponent in past elections to our candidate in that election. Why? Because they said, well, what is it that I can do with these 400 likely voters? What is it that I can do? Well, I'm going to basically be the candidate, the ambassador to these folks. Well, that's something you can do. So if that's something you want to do, there are a lot of campaigns starting up today. And so what is it that you're doing to be a part of that? You can get in on the ground floor right now. So.
Well, thank you for saying that. And what I got from what you just said is that this isn't just for the candidate. This is for the campaign leadership. This is for the campaign volunteers. If you approach every campaign, whether you're the candidate, you're a campaign manager, you're a top level leader in the campaign, or you're a rank and file volunteer, is if you approach the campaign that opportunity is a function of the number of conversations you have for opportunity, like those precinct leaders, they went and they talked to their people about what was possible out of electing such and such candidate. And they really got to know their precinct. And it's really in that getting to know and really speaking to what matters to people at that one-on-one level. And I've not seen too many campaigns who get down to that precinct level, but if you have someone who's really committed to having those kind of conversations with people in their neighborhood, it is really powerful. And we've gotten away from that to some extent in the Republican Party and really as a country. But if you're able to have a campaign that gets to that nitty-gritty level and having leaders step up who are willing to have conversations with people to see what matters to them and to speak to what matters to them and connect that to the candidate's vision, that is really powerful. So this is for everybody on the campaign. This is for you in your own life. If you want to take this and take all the politics out of it and all the campaign stuff out of it and apply it to whatever you're doing, this is definitely something for everybody that you can have more success, you can have more opportunity, you can have more luck ultimately by having more conversations that are geared towards opportunity. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to get it right. Just get out there, start talking about it, have something you're about, and there will be people who get onto it. At some point we'll do an episode exclusively just on if someone says no or you feel like they rejected you, how to deal with that. But the truth is, you want to get to the conversations, the people who really are digging what you're up to as fast as possible and get to more of those conversations, because that's where the magic's going to be, and highly recommend it. So with that, thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. as we continue to reignite American patriotism. We are going to be doing an episode either tomorrow or on Thursday, specifically on the census, redistricting, and the changing, evolving map for congressional races. And we've talked about this for some time. We expected that it was going to be pretty good for Republicans. I think we'll have a couple different perspectives, but I think it's really very likely going to be a good congressional map for Republicans. I think we have a lot of opportunity. History would tell us that we're going to do pretty well in this first midterm. So, stay tuned for that. See you tomorrow at 11 a.m. as we continue to reignite American patriotism on another episode of Political Trade Secrets.
Join us next time by subscribing on iTunes and get show notes and sign up for our newsletter at politicaltradesecrets.com.